Carnage on one of the world's busiest streets today. A wrong-way driver jumps onto the sidewalk, killing a pedestrian and injuring nearly 24 people. And good afternoon to you. I'm Liz Chow.
And I'm David Navarro. We're waiting for the president to hold a news conference and an ABC special report. We're going to take that live when it happens. But we're going to begin now with the chaos on the streets of New York. Times Square, often called the crossroads of the world, came to an abrupt halt today when a car jumped onto the sidewalk, mowing down pedestrians in its way. One person was killed, 22 others hurt before the car finally came to a stop.
Police say the chaos started when the driver, 26-year-old Richard Rojas, headed south on 7th Avenue, made a U-turn, a move that now meant he was traveling in the wrong way on 7th Avenue. He jumped the sidewalk, and that is when the carnage began. That driver continued 3 blocks before his car finally came to a stop on 7th Avenue and 45th Street. This afternoon, we're learning much more about Rojas, who is from the Bronx. He's also a U.S. Navy veteran. Investigators say he has 2 prior DWI arrests, and initial tests have indicated that Rojas tested positive for drugs. Police say he punched an officer while trying to attempt to run away from the scene of the crash. The big question this afternoon is, did he plow into that crowd of people intentionally?
We have a team of reporters working this story. We're going to begin with Eyewitness News reporter NJ Burkett, live in Times Square with the very latest on this investigation. NJ.
And Dave, sources tell Eyewitness News that the driver appears to have been smoking some synthetic form of marijuana, that he may have been in some respects paranoid or in some delusional belief that the world may have been coming to an end. All of that based on interviews conducted over the last several hours. It answers some questions, but not all of them. The driver was tackled, squirming and snarling moments after the crash. His Honda Accord impaled on steel stanchions after plowing into a crowd of noontime tourists in Times Square. Witnesses said it was horrific.
He just drove up, the person drove up onto the sidewalk, drove over a whole bunch of people. I'm still very upset. I mean, I was almost killed.
An 18-year-old tourist from Michigan was killed.
Everybody was trying to help. People was recording, police was getting people back. It was just chaos.
22 others were injured, many of them seriously. Counterterrorism officers converged on Times Square, but the crash was not immediately believed to be an act of terrorism. The driver was identified as Richard Rojas of the Bronx. Police say he careened across a pedestrian plaza at high speed for 3 blocks before crashing at 44th Street. He was later tested for drugs and alcohol.
Thank God, based on what we know now, there is no indication that this was an act of terror. But for anyone who's concerned, my message is always the same. This is the safest big city in America.
And back now, the live picture here in Times Square, an eerie scene in Times Square. You can see where the vehicle came to rest on top of those steel stanchions, intended, of course, to protect pedestrians here in Times Square. Charges against the driver have not yet been announced. I am told, however, that his blood alcohol level tested at 0.0, so no evidence of intoxication, but I'm told fairly strong evidence that he was under the influence of some form of drug. Live in Times Square, NJ Burkett, Channel 7, Eyewitness News.
Jay, thanks a lot. Well, police say the man who was behind the wheel of that car has a history of driving while intoxicated and with menacing. Let's go to Jim Hoffa with more on the suspect, Richard Rojas. Jim.
Yeah, it seems by the minute we're learning more and more about Richard Rojas. As NJ alluded to, he actually apparently told police in interviews, post-crash interviews, that he had been smoking something. We now know that we believe, at least according to police, that this was probably synthetic marijuana. Also, that he probably had psychological problems, that he told police that he thought that the world was soon about to come to an end. All these signs and many more that the life of this Mount Eden Bronx man seemed to be careening out of control. When 26-year-old Richard Rojas drove his maroon Honda wildly down the sidewalk in Times Square, the former naval veteran already had a history of illegal, dangerous behavior behind the wheel.
As the commissioner had said, he has a previous background arrest history. In 2008, He was arrested in Queens for drinking and driving, and also in 2015 he was arrested in Manhattan for drinking and driving.
In one of those drunk driving cases, Rojas was going 90 miles per hour in a 50-mile-per-hour zone. Today, an eyewitness to Rojas's deadly drive down 7th Avenue estimated that Rojas was going 60 miles an hour.
Really fast, really fast. 100 kilometers an hour. It was really fast. It was like a bowling, hitting people.
Rojas, who worked as a notary, just last week was charged with menacing by the NYPD, allegedly for threatening someone who came to his house to get a document notarized. Police say he put a knife to the man's throat. Rojas served at least 3 years in the Navy. He was enlisted from 2011 to 2014 as an electrician's mate and fireman apprentice. He was also awarded the National Defense Service Medal.
Currently, right now, he's being transported to a testing facility where Highway will test him for drugs and alcohol.
We know now that the alcohol test has come back negative. It doesn't appear that he was drinking, but certainly police are now saying that he was under the influence of something, probably synthetic marijuana. We should note, I think, rather interesting that he only served 2.5 years in the Navy. That usually is 4 years unless you're a career Navy person. So the question is, was he discharged? We don't know, but certainly that raises the question. And if so, if he was discharged, why? Now, a little bit of relief here at Times Square and all across the city that this was not terrorism as initially thought, not terrorism now, but still the outcome is the same. Many lives, innocent lives, change forever. We're live in Times Square. Jim Hoffer, Channel 7. Eyewitness News.
Jim, thank you. Many of those lives that you had mentioned are the 22 victims who were injured, 4 of them critically, when that maroon Honda Rojas was driving plowed into several crowds of pedestrians. In one video, you can see bystanders rushing to help those were injured. Several of the victims were taken to Bellevue Hospital, and that's where Eyewitness News reporter Darla Miles is, and she continues our coverage. Darla.
Liz, the 18-year-old girl who was killed was a tourist from Michigan. Her 13-year-old sister is here in critical condition at Bellevue, as well as a few of the other patients injured. Again, the number of those patients not known at this time. But I want to show you a tweet Mayor de Blasio's office sent out this afternoon. He was here visiting not only with the doctors who are treating those who were injured in that Times Square crash, he also met with family members this afternoon. We're told that meeting lasted for a little under an hour. Again, there are 2 critical patients here at Bellevue Hospital. And in terms of the other patients who are here, I spoke with a family member who did not want to go on camera. He told me that those families are actually being held in a separate area of the hospital. They have not yet been allowed to see their relatives. This is while they undergo tests like MRIs and things like that. But there are 2 critical patients here at Bellevue, 4 overall.
None of those at this point, thanks to the fact that they were quickly transported to this hospital, is likely, but that doesn't mean they are cleared. None of those 4 are right now likely to perish. Conditions can change. We're very hopeful that the fact they were treated here quickly and removed quickly, that they will survive. 3 other injuries were very serious but not critical. They were also removed to local hospitals. 15 are less serious injuries, we call green tag injuries. All of these people have now been transported to the hospitals, are being treated.
Other 2 patients in critical condition there at St. Luke's Roosevelt. The name of the woman who was killed this afternoon has not yet been released, but again, she's an 18-year-old tourist from Michigan. Her 13-year-old sister here in critical condition at Bellevue. Now, the mayor's office also sent out a tweet within the last hour because there still may be family members looking for their relatives who were in Times Square. If you are looking for someone who is in Times Square this afternoon and you still don't know where they are, please call 311. We'll have